You're watching the San Jose News Channel, KNTV San Jose. Now, Scott Budman with the latest news, weather, traffic, sports, and business information for the Santa Clara Valley. Good morning, San Jose.
Milpitas resident Harry Wu remains in a Chinese prison this morning, but Milpitas high school students are doing their part in the campaign to free the human rights advocate. More than 200 summer school students spent part of yesterday writing letters demanding Wu's release. The Chinese government arrested the 58-year-old Hoover fellow last month, charging him with espionage. The teens addressed their letters to President Clinton, Congress, and the Chinese government. It's part of an international Free Harry campaign.
If a lot of people get down on the president and their president, they'll be just sitting there going, well, we can't keep this up any longer.
We are going to add our voices to the rising chorus to free Harry. We want Harry home safe and sound, and we want him home now.
A special Free Harry hotline has been set up listing upcoming rallies and meetings. You can call 415-522-3943 for more information.
Now, live, the award-winning KTVU News team and the new news.
The Chinese are taking a hard line on the case of jailed human rights activist Harry Wu. Former Secretary of State Henry Kissinger, who recently met with China's premier, says the Chinese told him they will not release Wu in the near future. Chinese authorities arrested Wu last month as he attempted to enter China. They have charged him with stealing state secrets and other crimes. Wu, who is an American citizen from Milpitas in the South Bay, has crusaded against human rights violations in Chinese prisons.
Now, Bay TV News at 7.
Wife of the human rights activist detained in China wants a face-to-face meeting with the mayor of Shanghai. He's scheduled to arrive in the Bay Area this weekend to celebrate sister city relationships with San Francisco. So now, Milpitas resident Ching-Li Wu is asking Mayor Frank Jordan to help arrange the interview. She wants to tell Shanghai's mayor that it's in China's best interest to release her husband, Harry Wu, as soon as possible.
From KPIX Channel 5, this is Eyewitness News at 10.
The wife of human rights activist Harry Wu says she wants to meet with the mayor of Shanghai during his visit to San Francisco this weekend. Wu has been jailed in China since June 19th. Tonight, Congressman Pete Stark hosted a town meeting in Milpitas to urge business to push Wu's release.
The Chinese business people hear from an American, they're going to go right across the hall to the party person and say, look at this. I'm hearing from an American business person and they're unhappy.
The U.S. State Department has called for the immediate release of Harry Wu.
This is News Center 4 at 5, your 24-hour news service.
San Francisco kicked off a week of activities this afternoon celebrating its sisterhood with Shanghai. But topping the agenda this year will be Harry Wu, a Bay Area human rights activist born in Shanghai, now being held by the Chinese government. Over 100 protesters demanded that the event be canceled. It was not. News Center 4's Linda De La Rey reports.
This is the 15th year that San Francisco and Shanghai have celebrated their sisterhood. But this year's week of festivities, which began today, is center stage in a conflict between China and the United States. A conflict so volatile that potentially national security could be threatened.
Free Harry Wu! Free Harry Wu!
This is Harry Wu, a Bay Area resident and human rights activist, an American born in Shanghai who spent 19 years in Chinese prisons for exposing rights violations and has continued his mission as a U.S. citizen. The yellow ribbons are a show of support for Wu, who was captured by the Chinese government June 19th and remains in custody.
I worry about his safety very much because you don't know, because China doesn't have a fair legal system, so they can do anything at any time.
Wu's wife, Ching-Li, along with many of his supporters, had asked San Francisco Mayor Frank Jordan to cancel this year's celebration in light of Wu's detainment. Even Jack Edelman, an organizer of the event, was against it.
I'm sure it's a minority opinion in the San Francisco-Shanghai Sister City Committee. Most of the people are business people. Most of the activity is business, and most business people have their primary interest, obviously, is business, and human rights is not more important than business.
Jordan refused to cancel. However, he did write a letter to President Clinton and China's heads of state.
We are very conscious of the stress and the tension this has created, right at a time when we have a Shanghai Sister City Week in San Francisco.
Jordan says he's already spoken with Shanghai's mayor about Wu and will continue the dialogue in coming days. In fact, most everyone involved seems to recognize this year the controversy will probably overshadow the color. In San Francisco, Linda De La Rey for News Center 4.
And now, live, the Bay Area's #1 and most respected news source, the KTVU News Team, with the 5 o'clock news.
Several hundred people staged a rally today in support of human rights activist Harry Wu. The South Bay man is being held in a Chinese prison accused of spying. Vern Hawkins reports.
A Chinese lion helped kick off the festival to celebrate the 15-year sister city relationship between San Francisco and Shanghai. Mayors from the two cities posed for pictures and looked on. Organizers hope to emphasize a growing relationship between Shanghai and San Francisco. But a protest rally nearby spotlights a growing dispute between Beijing and Washington. The yellow ribbons are for the imprisoned Harry Wu. Speakers protested Wu's detention and criticized China's human relations policy.
When we work for Harry's release, we work for the release of tens of thousands, perhaps hundreds of thousands of Chinese prisoners who deserve their freedom.
Wu's wife and the mayor of Milpitas, where the Wus are residents, strolled alongside the Shanghai ceremonies, hoping to talk with Shanghai's mayor. Police kept them and protesters back. The Milpitas mayor wants Mayor Jordan to take a hard line.
That he puts it right out on the table and says, this is important to us. We cannot have a normal relationship while you are holding one of our citizens in jail.
My side is to release Harry Wu because that's what the letter said to both the President of China and to President Clinton. But I have to obviously go through the State Department and through the federal government.
Harry Wu, 58, Chinese-born, is a human rights activist. He previously spent 19 years in China's prison camps like these. He videotaped the conditions and brought it to the attention of the world. He returned to China last month, was rearrested, and charged with stealing state secrets.
So far, I know that he's not been tortured, and he's okay. The most important thing is we have to get him back.
So Shanghai Week ceremonies began with speeches by the city's mayors and protesters in the crowd holding up yellow ribbons. In San Francisco, Vern Hawkins for the 5 o'clock news.
KGO-TV Channel 7, #1 in Northern California. Now Carolyn Tyler, Dan Noyes, Joel Bartlett Weather, and Dan Lovett Sports. This is Channel 7 News at 6.
Bay Area human rights activist Harry Wu remains in Chinese custody tonight. U.S. Secretary of State Warren Christopher said today he believes the U.S. should maintain trade ties with China despite the detention. And in San Francisco, the mayor is going ahead with festivities celebrating a sister city relationship with Shanghai despite the detention and despite a protest by Wu's supporters. Channel 7's Bev Michelonis reports.
They called it a yellow ribbon rally to free American human rights activist Harry Wu, now jailed in China on charges of espionage. This demonstration was meant to put pressure on San Francisco Mayor Frank Jordan, and especially on the mayor of Shanghai, Zhu Guangdi. Both men spoke at San Francisco's Justin Herman Plaza today as part of a week-long celebration to commemorate a 15-year sister city relationship.
And while Shanghai and San Francisco have a party, a great humanitarian faces a long prison term or possibly even execution. Is this right? No!
Wu, who lives in Milpitas, was born in China and spent 19 years in Chinese prisons. A leader in exposing Chinese prison labor practices and other human rights violations, Wu was arrested upon entering China last month. His wife, Qing Wu, who joined today's protest, said she felt the Shanghai Week celebration should be canceled and had this message for Mayor Zhu.
It is they who violate human rights of Chinese people. It is they who should be on trial, not Harry.
Mayor Zhu was initially booed by demonstrators who held up yellow ribbons as he spoke. The Shanghai mayor made no mention of the controversy in his speech. Mayor Jordan, however, did.
We are sensitive to the diplomatic issues that face both federal governments at this time.
Jordan later said he spoke with Mayor Zhu about Wu this morning and said both agreed it should be solved at the federal level in each country.
He told me he's conscious of it too, and he's interested in seeing exactly where it goes from here. But I told him I sent 2 letters, and he did not disagree with when I mentioned one to the president of each country. He did not disagree with that approach.
A number of business and trade seminars are planned through next Saturday for Shanghai Week here in San Francisco. Protesters say they plan to demonstrate at many of those events as well. In San Francisco, I'm Bev Michelonis, Channel 7 News.
From KPIX Channel 5, this is Eyewitness News at 6.
Back here in the Bay Area, a San Francisco rally showed strong support for another prisoner, for human rights activist Harry Wu. Wu, who was born in China but is now an American citizen, remains in a Chinese jail tonight, charged with stealing state secrets. This afternoon, San Francisco kicked off Shanghai Week, celebrating 15 years of friendship between the sister cities. But as Robert Honda reports, supporters for Harry Wu crashed the party.
About 100 protesters got as close as they could to the Shanghai Week celebration, chanting at the visiting Chinese delegation, calling for the release of Harry Wu. Wu's wife, Qing Li, made a surprise appearance, flying in from Washington in hopes of making a personal plea to the Shanghai mayor.
And I want to tell him to his face that the criminals are the people holding Harry.
Well, so far I know that he's not been tortured, and he's okay. But most important thing is we have to get him back.
Today, Secretary of State Warren Christopher said China should retain most favored nation status in its trade relations. That angered Wu's supporters.
I think it's distressing that one U.S. citizen can say that when another U.S. citizen is in prison somewhere.
By the time Shanghai Mayor Zhu Guangdi and San Francisco Mayor Frank Jordan showed up, the scene was tense and tempers were flaring as the two crowds began to mix.
What have I done to violate anything? I'm just going to watch the event. Why can't we set up an area. Why? We set up an area.
So I'm going to emphasize over and over again that I hope that both presidents, President Jiang Zemin and President Clinton, with our own members of Congress on the national level, as well as the officials in Beijing from their national level, would be the ones to sort it out and work it out as quickly as possible.
In his welcome, Mayor Jordan did not mention Wu by name, but did say there was a sensitive issue that needed to be resolved at the federal level. In the midst of the festivities, the Chinese delegation made a quick exit.
The abrupt exit created sort of an awkward atmosphere for the rest of today's festivities. That's liable to be the situation throughout Shanghai Week, as the issue of Harry Wu casts its shadow over the sister cities and both countries. In San Francisco, Robert Honda, Channel 5 Eyewitness News.
Harry Wu's wife, Qing Li, did not get to meet with Shanghai's mayor. She leaves for Europe tonight to lobby other countries, trying to get them to help in securing her husband's release.
Now, Bay TV News at 7.
A noisy protest in San Francisco demanding the release of a Chinese-American human rights activist. Good evening and thank you for joining us. I'm Carl Van Amberg. The release of Harry Wu, an important issue across the Bay Area, threatening to spill into the issue of the San Francisco's mayor race. More on that in just a moment. It was Mayor Frank Jordan on the hot seat today when protesters showed up at ceremonies welcoming the mayor of Shanghai to San Francisco. Jordan had hoped to keep the demonstration and the Sister Cities event separate, but he didn't succeed. Bay TV's Ira Eisenberg was on hand today. How did the mayor do today, Ira?
Well, the mayor of San Francisco has had better days, Carl.
Both events happened where Market Street ends at Justin Herman Plaza, across from the Ferry Building. Human rights activist Harry Wu, who a month ago was arrested while on a trip to China, was once a native of San Francisco's sister city, Shanghai. More than 50 noisy demonstrators showed up to voice their displeasure with Mayor Jordan for welcoming Zhu Guangdai, the mayor of Shanghai, to San Francisco, while Harry Wu remains a prisoner in China.
I would like to meet the mayor of Shanghai myself. I want to tell him to his face that Harry is guilty of only one thing: telling the truth about China's Laogai system, the most extensive gulag in the world today.
Police had hoped to confine the demonstrators to a small corner of Justin Herman Plaza, safely removed from the sister city event. But once the festivities got underway, the Wu partisans infiltrated the audience. They crowded around the stage to register silent protest by holding up yellow ribbons. The event was supposed to be festive, but the people who showed up seemed unusually reserved. Few would comment, except one anonymous spectator.
Do you think the mayor of San Francisco was wrong in doing this?
I think he should postpone this ceremony and should ask Chinese government to free him first and then can continue after freeing him. I think he is wrong.
Before the event began, the mayor's office released the news that Jordan had written letters to President Clinton and his counterpart in China asking that Harry Wu be released. Following the speech-making and handshaking, Mayor Jordan met briefly with reporters.
By going through with this ceremony, aren't you really taking sides against the Harry Wu faction?
No, I'm not, because my side is to release Harry Wu, because that's what the letter said to both the President of China and to President Clinton. But I have to obviously go through the State Department and to the federal government.
The mayor's position failed to satisfy supporters of Harry Wu, however, and they gave the mayor a raucous send-off.
Okay, and those, obviously, this is going to be a big issue in the mayor's race coming up.
Yeah, evidently Harry Wu will become an issue in the mayor's race, and it doesn't look like it's an issue that Mayor Jordan will be very comfortable with.
Okay, thank you very much, Ira Eisenberg, tonight.
This is News Center 4 Nightbeat, your 24-hour news service.
An American remains jailed in China, accused of spying, and today a very visible protest accompanied the kickoff of San Francisco's week-long celebration of its sisterhood with Shanghai. And the message out there, very hard to miss: free Harry Wu. He is the American citizen, Bay Area resident, and human rights activist arrested last month by the Chinese. His imprisonment has created an international incident, straining relations between the U.S. and China. Wu's supporters wanted the celebration this week canceled. Today, his wife talked about her fears, and a celebration organizer talked about the politics of the sister city relationship.
I worry about his safety very much, because you don't know, because China doesn't have a fair legal system, so they can do anything at any time.
I'm sure it's a minority opinion in the San Francisco-Shanghai Sister City Committee, but most of the people are business people. Most of the activity is business, and most business people have their primary interest, obviously, is business, and human rights is not more important than business.
Mayor Frank Jordan says today that he is very aware of the stress that arrest has created. He says he has brought the issue up in conversations with Shanghai's mayor.